The chandelier light in La Belle Étoile shimmered like a constellation trapped in glass, casting a warm glow over the polished mahogany tables. Daniel Harper, CEO of Harper Tech, sat across from his fiancée, Elise, his tailored suit as crisp as his reputation. At 38, he'd built an empire from a garage startup, his name synonymous with innovation and ambition. Tonight was meant to be perfect, a celebration of their engagement sealed with a reservation at the city's finest restaurant. Elise's laughter danced like the bubbles in their champagne, but Daniel's smile faltered when he saw her. Carrying a tray of water glasses, her apron stretched tight over a visibly pregnant belly, was Sarah, his ex-wife. Her chestnut hair was pulled into a messy bun and her eyes, once so familiar, avoided his. Daniel's heart thudded, the room tilting as memories flooded back. 5 years ago, their marriage had crumbled under the weight of his relentless drive. He'd chosen late nights at the office over quiet evenings with her, and when she'd asked for more, he'd let her go, believing success was worth the cost. Now here she was, serving tables, carrying a child, and wearing a tired smile that pierced him. Elise, oblivious, chatted about wedding venues, her diamond ring catching the light. Daniel nodded absently, his gaze locked on Sarah as she moved between tables. Why was she here? She'd been a graphic designer, talented and spirited, not a waitress. The question gnawed at him, but pride kept him silent. He couldn't disrupt this night, not with Elise beaming and their future sparkling brighter than the chandelier. Sarah approached their table, her expression professional but strained. "Good evening. Can I start you with anything?" Her voice was steady, but Daniel caught the flicker of recognition in her eyes. He wanted to speak, to ask how she'd ended up here, but his throat tightened. Elise ordered a salad, her tone bright, unaware of the history standing before them. Sarah nodded, scribbled the order, and walked away, leaving Daniel grappling with a guilt he hadn't felt in years. As the evening unfolded, Daniel's attention split between Elise's chatter and Sarah's quiet efficiency. He noticed her wince as she carried a heavy tray, her hand resting briefly on her belly. A man at another table snapped his fingers, demanding faster service, and Sarah apologized softly, her shoulders tense. Daniel's chest ached. This wasn't the Sarah he'd known, vibrant, creative, full of dreams. What had happened to her? Midway through their entree, Elise excused herself to the restroom. Daniel seized the moment. He waved Sarah over, his voice low. "Sarah, what's going on? Why are you working here?" Her eyes met his, guarded but weary. "Life doesn't always go as planned, Daniel. I'm doing what I need to for my baby." She glanced at his table, at the empty champagne flute beside Elise's plate. "Congratulations, by the way." The words stung, but before he could respond, she turned to another table. Daniel's mind raced. He remembered their last fight, her pleading for him to slow down, to choose her over his empire. He'd dismissed her, convinced she didn't understand his vision. Now, seeing her struggle, he wondered what his success had cost her. When Elise returned, Daniel was distracted, his fork idle. She touched his hand, concerned. "You okay, babe? You seem off." He forced a smile, just thinking about work. But his thoughts were on Sarah, on the life they'd once shared, on the choices he'd made. The restaurant buzzed around them, but Daniel felt trapped in a silent reckoning. Then a clatter broke his thoughts, a tray slipping from Sarah's hands, glasses shattering on the floor. The room hushed as the rude customer from earlier barked, "Can't you do your job right?" Sarah knelt, red-faced, picking up shards as the manager rushed over, his tone sharp. "Sarah, this is the second time this week. We can't afford mistakes." Daniel's fists clenched. He stood, ignoring Elise's confused look, and approached the scene. "It was an accident," he said firmly, his CEO authority cutting through the tension. "I'll cover the cost of the damages." The manager blinked, surprised, but nodded. Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with a mix of gratitude and embarrassment. Daniel knelt beside her, helping gather the broken glass. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I want to," he said, his voice soft but resolute. In that moment, he saw not just his ex-wife, but a woman fighting to survive, carrying a child and burdens he couldn't imagine. The weight of his past decisions pressed harder. Back at the table, Elise's brow furrowed. "What was that about? Do you know her?" Daniel hesitated, then told the truth. "She's my ex-wife. We haven't spoken in years." Elise's eyes widened, but she listened as he explained, his voice raw with regret. I wasn't there for her when it mattered. I can't undo that, but I can do something now. The meal continued, but Daniel's focus was elsewhere. When Sarah brought the check, he slipped a note into the billfold with a tip far exceeding the meal's cost. A check for $10,000, scribbled with the words, "For you and your baby." "I'm sorry." He didn't wait for her reaction, ushering Elise out before Sarah could open it. Outside, under the city's neon glow, Elise squeezed his hand. "That was kind, Daniel. I'm proud of you." Her words warmed him, but his thoughts lingered on Sarah. He'd built a fortune, but tonight, he'd glimpsed something richer, the power of a single act to mend a broken thread. Days later, Daniel received an email from Sarah. She'd found a new job, one that suited her talents thanks to his help. "You didn't have to, but you did," she wrote. "It reminded me there's still good in the world." She was moving forward not just for herself but for her child, with hope rekindled. Daniel closed the email, a weight lifting. Success had defined him, but compassion redefined him. As he looked at Elise planning their future, he vowed to balance ambition with humanity. One gesture couldn't erase the past, but it could light the way to a better tomorrow, for Sarah, for her child, and for the man he hoped to become. Kindness, redemption, and the transformative power of compassion. A single act of generosity can ripple outward, healing old wounds and inspiring hope, reminding us that humanity's strength lies in lifting each other up.